What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday, mainly covering the NFL, but the NBA season is quickly approaching. MLB playoffs are right around the corner. I believe it starts in about a week. So you already know we're going to come out with predictions for that. But with that being said, NFL season done with week 3. Week 4 starts tomorrow. And in today's video, we have an exciting one. So now that we've been a couple weeks in, I think it's time, we grade how, rookie or all the quarterbacks in the NFL are playing, and just kind of give a gauge on how each team's looking, and mainly obviously the most important position in the NFL, the quarterback, how each team's looking, and how each quarterback has been playing so far. I know we're only 3 games in, but I love to overreact, and the social media teams, they all love to overreact to how one bad week can change everything, one good week can change everything, and just kind of get a gauge on how the QBs are looking so far. But with that being said, if you love NFL content, make sure to like and subscribe. It really means a lot. Trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of October. Hopefully, we can reach that goal. We just passed 60, so thank you for that. But with that being said, we'll just get it right into it. So our tier list breakdown is MVP level. One of the front runners, top 10-ish quarterback. They're playing at a very high level, just not quite on MVP level. Above average, playing good. Average, just solid, average football. Below average, not playing all that great. And then buns, booty cheeks, you already know what that is. Some of the worst, quarterback playing football. But with that being said, we're starting off with Josh Allen, and you already know what it is with Josh Allen, the reigning NFL MVP, looking to defend his title, and he's been playing at a stud level so far. The 3 games. The Jets game, he didn't really need to do much, but used his legs efficiently. Obviously, that crazy comeback win against the Ravens might be the best performance of the year so far. And then did his thing against the Dolphins, another 3-touchdown game. This Bills offense is rolling. This team's playing great. They're 3-0. Josh Allen is obviously the main reason for that. But shout out James Cook. He's been a real baller. Next up, Justin Fields. It's kind of hard to gauge because he had one elite game, one pretty bad game, got concussed. So I think for a starter, I think, he was really good in that one game, though. This is going to be the Jets quarterback play as the whole. So far with Tyrod Taylor, he had a solid game, did have that one pick 6, but the Jets offense was moving the ball at points. I'll put the Jets quarterback playing average so far. It honestly hasn't been, all that bad, especially that Steelers game. Justin Fields was lighting it up. Against the Bills, they did get clamped. And against Tampa, they played all right. They played a little bit better. So I think, one really good game, one really bad game, and then one, whatever kind of game kind of puts them in the middle so far. I do think by the end of the year, it'll probably just be below average just with the other team's offenses. But, gotta give them credit. They've been competing so far. They could have easily won. They could easily be 2-1 right now if it wasn't for the Steelers, Chris Boswell, and then Baker Mayfield being super clutch. But, shout out the Jets. They've been feisty under Aaron Glenn so far. So gotta give credit where credit's due. Tua for me has been pretty below average, I think. The Colts game was probably one of the worst performances we ever seen. The Patriots game, he bounced back. And then the Dolphins game, or against the Bills, they were right there until the end, until he just has thrown too many interceptions. He's been reading, one read for too long, and that's what ultimately costed them so far in, that Patriots and Dolphins and Bills game. Sorry, just, making stupid mistakes. He has had, some positive moments. I feel like last week against the Bills, he was finally starting to get that connection with Waddle and Tyreek a little bit. But it was a lot of checkdowns, especially early on to Devon A. Chan. And there's just bad vibes in Miami right now. It really has been great for Tua. But I like him, nice guy. And obviously, we've seen in 2023 that he can play at an MVP level. So hopefully he can get back to that. I don't even really necessarily blame it all on him. The offensive line isn't really all that good. But in just the weird vibes, Tyreek requesting out. But I'll be curious to see, how they continue to look. Next up, Drake May. I think honestly, I'd go high average. I think, he's been around there. I think the Raiders game, they were just relying on him. I think the Miami game, they mixed up a little bit. And then honestly, Drake May played pretty well in the Steelers game, did have that one red zone pick tip, but really the fumbles is what let him down. I think overall he's been playing at a pretty good level. I'll move him up above average. I think, like what I've seen from Drake May so far, I do think he is the Patriots franchise quarterback. But like I said, they could also, easily be 1 or 3-0. Sorry, the Raiders game, they kind of let it slip. They did have a crucial, just a couple of mistakes. I thought, like I said, they were too reliant on Drake May passing. They need to be more balanced. They got that against the Dolphins. They were able to drop 33 points. Drake May really good in that one. They only put up 4, but like I said, they had a lot of red zone trips. Just Ramondre Stevenson, Gibson just fumbling the ball. He made some great plays to keep those drives going using his legs. I think he's only going to continue to get better. I think the Patriots found their guy in Drake May. Next up is Aaron Rodgers. I would say this is another one I'm going to put, in average. I think this Jets game, he was obviously a lead in. Seahawks game, he wasn't great in, and Patriots game also wasn't really great. And this offense has been kind of, falling off the cliff the last 2 weeks. Wasn't necessarily though all on Aaron Rodgers. He did come up with that big touchdown pass to Calvin Austin, but he's made some mistakes. I think his 3 interceptions so far in the year. Just think the Steelers, they stole one against the Patriots, but that's what Mike Tomlin has done his whole career. I think the process though for the Steelers offense really hasn't been the best. Jalen Warren has been probably their best receiver out of the backfield, but it's fine for me for fantasy football purposes. But I think Aaron Rodgers, I think he'll be an average quarterback this year. I think last year with the Jets he was below average. I think this infrastructure with the Steelers, DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, that ground game will get going. I just think he'll be an average quarterback this year. I think that's what we've seen so far. Some highs, some lows. I think there'll be a right balance in there. Next up, Joe Burrow. I'm not even really going to count Joe Burrow. This is going to be the replacement for like Jake Browning. I think Jake Browning has been pretty bad. 5 interceptions, not even 2 full games against my Vikings. I was thrilled to see. I love a blowout win. Obviously with Joe Burrow, it'd be top 10 quarterback, MVP level if he was playing the full season. But unfortunately, we're just going to replace the image with Jake Browning because that's what we have. So I think Jake Browning just has not looked good so far, and it's not all on him. This offensive line is putrid. They can't get anything going on the run game. But still, when you have T. Higgins, I'd like to see a little bit more. He did have that game-winning drive against Jacksonville. Holy bad. That's all I can say. I think it's going to be Bengals might be tanking, even though they're 2-1. Next up, Lamar Jackson, MVP. I mean, come on. The Ravens are 1-2, but really hasn't been on Lamar. The games they lost, 40 points, 30 points. He's been playing really good. He did get sacked a lot against the Lions. I'd like to see him take, but 4 touchdown passes against the Browns, which is an elite defense, so you can't really sleep on that. I think overall, it's just unfortunate that the Ravens, find a way to lose these close games all the time, just for my Super Bowl pick, but Lamar's been playing great. I think the Ravens will still find a way. They were 1-2 last year. They'll find a way to win 11, 12 games and be, in the divisional round at least. But obviously the bigger goal is to get over that, win a Super Bowl. But Lamar's still playing at a very high. Joe Flacco, I think, has been pretty below average to say the least. He's made some, he's had some decent throws. They were able to win against the Packers, but it was really the defense, creating that short field and them to a touchdown drive. But still, was better than what Deshaun Watson was giving them last year. So credit to Joe Flacco for that. We'll be curious to see, if the Browns do go eventually 1-7, but I don't think they will because their defense is too elite. But if their offense keeps putting up this bad production, will they make a QB switch? Remains to be seen. Next up, Jay Stroud. It's tough because he's really behind that bad offensive line so far. I think I haven't liked what I've seen from this Texans offense, and I think CJ Stroud, that last game, I didn't love the last interception. It's been pretty rough. I would say the Texans offense, like I said, put up 9 points, 10 points, and 19, and a lot of that's on the offense. They're not able to run the ball. Similarly, kind of a Bengals situation that Jake Browning has to deal with, but CJ Stroud just seems to be regressing, and so far he's been playing at a below average level. I guess I can move him up to average just because of the respect I have for him and, what he's shown in the past. And he's made some, good plays here and there, especially in that Buccaneers game, but still really haven't liked what I've seen. So I don't know. I think Texans, they were my AFC South pick, 0-3. Bad start to the year. Really can't get any worse than what it has been for this offense. So maybe it'll get better, but very, average, maybe even, if we're just doing the 3 weeks, like I said, we were probably have to move, below average. Next up, Daniel Jones. Goes without saying, top 10 of the season. Colts have once. Danny Dimes is accurate. He's making plays out of pocket, using his legs effectively. I think being with Kevin O'Connell for the last 2 months of the season really helped him. I think it shows how great of a coach Shane Steichen is. He was coaching up Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew to 8-9 win seasons right out in the playoff hunt. And now Daniel Jones, Jonathan Taylor has obviously been, one of the best running back in football probably so far. They got weapons, Michael Pittman, and it just shows when you surround a quarterback with a good infrastructure, really how good they can be. And he's been playing amazing so far. And like I said, it's not just been, screen passes. It's sustainable. Daniel Jones is making some tough throws under pressure. He's been playing great. I believe no interceptions so far to start the year. And when you score 33-29 against the Broncos, one of the best defenses in football, in 41 so far, I mean, you're in the top 10 level. Trevor Lawrence, I think he's been pretty average. He's made some good some good plays, throwing touchdown passes, but he's also had some bad interceptions. So I think that balances out into the average. I think in the Bengals game especially kind of sums up 3 touchdown passes. You get some high highs with them, but those interceptions were really bad. Had a bad interception against the Texans, but still has made some great throws to show why he, was so, the number 1 overall pick, one of the most talented quarterbacks. I think it's just been up and down roller coasters so far, but if he can steady it out, just be more consistent, kind of get rid of those 1 to 2, screen of death moments a game, I could easily see them, being a 11, 12 win team competing for that division, because Liam Cohen and his defense is playing very good. So it's been a great, start for Jacksonville. Obviously starting off 2-1. Hopefully they continue that. Cam Ward, I'm going to give credit to Cam Ward. I think with all he's gone through, this putrid play calling, the offensive line, I think Cam Ward deserves average tier. I think he's high highs, some low lows, but it's definitely infrastructure. He's making some plays. I mean, that his first touchdown pass against the Rams was amazing. We've seen the talent. Obviously, he's made some rookie mistakes. Kind of that first play against the Colts, just kind of staring at the running back. Kenny Moore picks off pick 6, but he's shown some ups, shown some downs. Same with Trevor Lawrence, but I'm really excited overall for his future. And I think even by the end of the season, if he continues to get better, he could be up there and above average. Mahomes, I still think hasn't played a top 10 QB. I think this offensive line hasn't really done many favors. He's used his legs very. That Chargers game was making some great throws on the run. The Giants game, did what he needed to do, made those kind of bad mistakes where he was throwing the ball backwards, but he still somehow recovered those. And I get it, it's annoying the glaze, but it was amazing that I was able to strip that ball back. But overall, just with the bad infrastructure, he's made it work. He's been putting up some good stats. And like I said, used his legs really well, especially in that Eagles game. Still, though, has missed some throws that you don't really think Patrick Mahomes should miss, just, given the bar he set for best quarterback in the world. But still, I've liked what I've seen. And I think once they get Rasheed Rice back and Worthy, they'll be able to take off. Justin Herbert, goes without saying, he's taken another leap to his game. MVP level so far, has the Chargers at 3-0. And I think even though it wasn't the most impressive statistics-wise, that Broncos win may have been the best win, just down 20-13. The way he scrambled for that game-tying touchdown, avoiding 2 sacks, throwing a dot to Keenan Allen, man, and then leading the game-winning drive to put them in field goal range. Obviously, we saw what he did against the Chiefs at the tone week 1, played amazing. Week 2 against the Raiders, more touchdown passes, turnover football like we've seen from Herbert, but he's been using his legs the most we've ever seen here. Jim Harbaugh and Roman, they really unleashed the passing game. He's made Quinn Johnson take that big year 3 leap. Keenan Allen's, back to being productive after a year with the Bears. I've loved what I've seen from Herbert so far. Definitely maybe the MVP favorite right now, either him or Josh Allen. Love what I see from him. Geno Smith, I think similar, has been kind of average. The Patriots game, he was pretty good in, 300-plus yards. Chargers game was putrid in. Commanders game, while, the stats show an amazing game, I thought he played good, but still, they're playing from behind a lot. I think he's been average so far. What we've seen from Geno over the years, I think they've been just too reliant on him, and that's not really his fault. I think in that Patriots game, you see, when you're throwing 40-plus times, you're going to get predictable. You're going to, make a mistake here and there. They need to get NT more involved in the running game, but this offensive line, big problem. But, he had a nice bounce back game last week. Just the defense, special teams did him no favors. So, and he's made Trey Tucker look like a great wide receiver too. But that's also Trey Tucker being amazing too, getting open and stuff. But hopefully the Steelers offense keeps clicking. But yeah, definitely disappointing showing considering I picked them to beat the Jaden Daniels-less Commanders. And they, screwed that up. Next up, Bo Nix. I think he's been pretty below average so far. He's kind of entered that sophomore slump. And And in my predictions, I had Denver at least going to the divisional round, being the Chiefs, and they still very well could, they could easily be 3-0, but actually he's just missed a lot of throws that you don't I mean, that Titans game, he was awful in 3 turnovers. Bounced back against the Colts, to have that one mistake, but it is what it is. But then kind of regressing against the Chargers game, had a lot of overthrows. Really haven't liked what I've seen from him, and it's just the first 3 weeks so far, so I could easily see, CJ Stroud bumping up to that average, above average again. But with that offensive line, I don't know. But easily I could see Bo Nix, just given the infrastructure, him going back up to average, because he started off slow last year. But the first 3 weeks, haven't liked what I've seen from him so far. So got to go below average. Next up, Dak Prescott. He's been above average for me. I know the Bears game has been, looks rough, but the Eagles game, stats wise, wasn't the best, but I thought he was phenomenal. The Giants game was obviously once again phenomenal, scoring 40 points, finding pick and CeeDee Lamb. And against the Bears, they just were down a lot. He became predictable, but he's still one of the better quarterbacks in the league. Will put up a lot of passing yards. We'll find George Pickens once CeeDee Lamb comes back, so his numbers may take a hit, but he's still been playing at a high level, what we expected. Dak does have some mistakes here and there, but it is what it is. Next up, Jane Daniels. This will be kind of a combination of Jane Daniels, Mariota for starting. I still think above average. They've been, very solid so far. I haven't seen that year 2 leap I've been expecting so far from Jane Daniels, but he's used his legs enough. The passing stats have been solid. Mariota as well had a great game, filling in for Jane Daniels. So far, the Bears play has been above average, but I still think there's another level that they can take, with adding Debo and Laramie that they can hit. But we definitely saw that more in this last game. And like I said, part of it is on Cliff Kingsbury being less predictable with the passing, and using cross-game more, which he did in week 3. And, 40-plus points. Looked like the best performances so far. They're only, I think, going to continue to hit their stride more. Next up, Jalen Hurts, top 10. I think it showed when it mattered most against the Rams, down 26-7. He can put this team on his back when they need to. I think this shows that they should unleash the passing game some more. But yeah, I think Jalen Hurts, obviously, when they need him to be, he's going to be great. He uses his legs really well, like we saw in the Dallas. Did enough against the Chiefs to get the win, even though it wasn't pretty. But when it mattered most, and even I picked the Rams, I thought their offense was more complete so far. Nope, down 26-7. Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, they all woke up and said, "All right, we'll try and bring this team back." And then credit the special teams, obviously, for that block. But Jalen Hurts, obviously, top 10 QB and probably the most clutch QB in the league. Either him or Baker, in my opinion, right now, because these dudes are some dogs when it matters most. Russell Wilson, the 2 games has been really buns. That game against the Cowboys looked like an MVP, but he did get benched for a reason. So it's kind of tough. I think I'll just go. I mean, I got to give him the respect for that one game, but he was definitely playing, below average. And I also just feel bad, having Joe Burrow, his face, even though it's Jake Browning and buns. But it is what it is. I think Russell Wilson kind of, that one game against the Cowboys looked great, but really was just relying on move ball. Cheese came back down to earth, just forcing the ball up, overthrowing to the field goal post. Now it's Jackson Dart season in the New York Giants. We'll talk about that more tomorrow, but I'm really excited. Have always been a Jackson Dart fan going back to his Ole Miss days. So he gets the start. I think it's kind of also Brian Dable, Joe Sheen's last stand of like, hey, if we can develop him, keep us around, because 0-3. The Commanders game was ugly. And like I said, not all of it's on him. The offensive line was pretty bad in that Commanders game, generating pressure. But the Chiefs game, he was just sailing passes, really was just relying on the moon ball. It's unfortunate to see the fall off of Russell Wilson over these last couple of years, but it's been bad. And like I said, that Cowboys game, maybe you get some hope, but the Cowboys defense is really just that bad. So, with that being said, I think it is what it is. We're just going to, have to live with it and, move on. In this new era in New York, I think Russell Wilson should probably honestly just retire after this year. Jared Goff, still a top 10 QB. That Packers game wasn't the best. Also wasn't really, I think it was just all the momentum Green Bay had from Trey Micah Parsons at home, debut, new coordinators. But since that game, 5 touchdown passes against the Bears was amazing against the Ravens when they need him to be. He's got one of the best statistical quarterbacks, one of the best QBs in the regular season. He's always playing at top 10 level and is just very consistent for the Lions. And shout out, like I said, shout out Jared Goff so far. Jordan Love, also top 10. Lions game was really good. Commanders game, also very good. Probably, I mean, he threw for 200 plus yards in the first half. But the Browns game was putrid, had that one bad pick. And, against the Lions also, was trying to give the ball away a little bit in the second half. I think still Jordan Love is taking another step to his game, but, is still due for like one or two mistakes a game. I think he's got to, if he can straighten that out, they'll be fine. And even as a Vikings fan, I'd love to overreact, say this is the Packers' fall off, but no, they're here. They're still an elite team. Jordan Love is a top back. And I think if he continues to, just consistent, they'll be just fine. JJ McCarthy. So this is a mix of JJ McCarthy and Carson Wentz, just because, it's based on the first 3 weeks and he didn't play last week. JJ McCarthy pretty much was straight bonds. Besides that one quarter, though, I think it's kind of a Russell Wilson moment where that one quarter definitely saved him. And then Carson Wentz came in, managed the game pretty well, and was, average, above average, I think like 14 to 20 or something, like 70% completion, 2 touchdowns, no picks, took some sacks. Obviously, didn't really need to do much given the defensive situation. But if we're just going JJ McCarthy, I'll just go below average. I think that one great quarter helped. I think Carson Wentz is just going to be kind of average. I'd like to see more. I think obviously it helped. We saw with Carson Wentz having Christian Darrisaw back. Jordan Addison come back this week, so I'm excited to see that. I think it'll only go up from here, but just based on what I saw so far, wasn't really the best. But like I said, that one quarter really did save them, and they're now 2-1 because of that. Obviously, with the domination went over the Bay. Curious to see how they do in their 2-week London trip with Carson Wentz starting both those, I assume, and then JJ McCarthy coming out of the bye. I'm still excited, still have hope, but it is what it is. Just be thankful you're 2-1, and just kind of I'll take it. Move on as a Vikings fan. Caleb Williams, gotta give some credit. I think he's right. I think we've seen some high highs, some low lows. I think the Vikings game, first half was very good. Started off 10 for 10, and then kind of melted down the second half. The Commanders game was, sorry, not the Commanders game, the Lions game. The offense, his stats look good, but, wasn't really the best game. They were getting blown out. And then the Cowboys game, that was Caleb Williams' best game so far of the career, was phenomenal. But based on the way he's been playing, I'll give him some credit. I think he's been playing at slightly above average level. Definitely way better than last year where he was below average. He's definitely taken a leap with Ben Johnson. There's going to be some growing pains in there. But I think he's definitely, like I said, taking a leap, and Bears fans should be excited. I think this offense will continue to get better. Him and Rome look like they have a real QB1, wide receiver 1 connection going on. And then, they finally utilized Colston Loveland, Luther Burn. I think it's mostly been good. Obviously, he's had the most mistakes second half against the Vikings. That scramble playing against the Lions where he threw the pick, but he's definitely shown some good moments. So I'll give him some credit. I think he's been slightly above average, average category. Brock Purdy, Mac Jones, they've been above average as well. The Kyle Shanahan system just shows QBs can play a high level. I think this has been Kyle Shanahan's best coaching job so far. 3-0, but they found ways to get it done. Brock Purdy in that Seahawks game had some good moments, some bad moments. Mac Jones was pretty phenomenal against the Saints, and then led that game-winning drive against the Cardinals. The QB play has been very good. I think once they get only healthier, George Kittle comes back at some point. Trent McCaffrey hopefully knocks on wood, stays healthy. Ricky Pearsall looks like a real wide receiver 1. The QB play, though, has been good enough, and it's been above average. That's why they're 3-0. Next up, Matthew Stafford, still playing at top 10 QB level. Texans game, had a pretty solid game all around. The Titans game, that offense really clicked in the second half. In this Eagles game, he did leave some meat on the bone, but still overall had a pretty solid game. Matthew Stafford just makes some insane sidearm throws that, are just like, wow. And then, you do see some, like, he does have maybe one interception. You're like, oh, what the hell? But, it is what it is. I think, like I said, the most disappointing thing was just probably even when they were up 26-7, that's 4 field goal drives. They couldn't bury the Eagles because they easily, like I said, could have been up like 35-7 and it's over. But it is what it is. Matthew Stafford is still a top 10 QB in this league, and this back problem, I think, has gone away because as long as he's healthy, the Rams are serious contenders. Kyler Murray has just been average for me, just been kind of disappointing. Can use his legs at points. He's made some throws, but, he's just not been all that great. The Cardinals offense, 20 points, 27, but really did nothing against the Panthers in the second half. And then 15 against the Niners. It's just been kind of whatever, lackluster. He's made some throws. He's missed some throws. it is what it is. Interceptions that just kind of question yourself. But, overall, hopefully he can bounce back and continue to get better. Because I need him to, just because I was so high on the Cardinals and he's my fantasy football quarterback. Next up, Sam Darnold. He's been playing at above average level. I think that Niners game had fans like, oh shit, like, is he, going back to the old Sam Darnold, even though he wasn't really all that bad. They just weren't really passing the ball. They unleashed that more in the Steelers game, and I know he had 2 picks, but he made some big time scrambles to get that road W. And then against the Saints was just really good. I mean, they blew him out. I think Sam Darnold, though, is above average quarterback. He showed last year as a fluke. I think being Kevin O'Connell's system, he learned a lot of things. Has that confidence built up that he can play in this league, and he's a good quarterback. And with the Seattle weapons, he's made Jack Smith and Jigba look like a real fantasy wide receiver one. Cooper Kupp getting involved now. I think the Seattle offense is taken off, and I'm excited to see versus in their division against a good Cardinals defense tomorrow night. Next up, Michael Penix. It's been a little disappointing to say the least, especially after that Carolina game. Average in the Tampa Bay game, he was pretty solid all around. Vikings game was just kind of whatever. He didn't grade out well PFF wise. QBR, that was really kind of Bijan taking the show. But then the Carolina game was just straight awful. Got benched. Was just making. They scored 0 points. So really haven't loved what I've seen so far. I still him and Drake London really haven't developed that connection. Darnell Mooney getting back in the offense. I still believe in Michael Penix, but like I said, Jim McCarthy, Bo Nix, just the first 2 weeks, so I got grade fair. I think overall it's going to be, I think sophomore year, basically his first rookie season, because he only started 3 games last year. There's going to be some growing pains. I still have confidence in Penix. I like his game. Big, strong dude, can run the ball. We saw that his athleticism in that Tampa Bay game reaching for the touchdown, but still going to take a little bit for him to develop. Next up, Baker Mayfield. I kind of want to give him the respect. I know this may be a little bit of an overreaction, but I think he's been playing at borderline MVP level, and I'll have him like last because I think he is the last MVP candidate. But just him and Emeka Buka, the connection, 3 game-winning drives already against the Falcons, against Houston, avoiding sacks, just scrambling, and then Tampa Bay puts them in position for a field goal to go up by 2 possessions. It gets blocked. They're down. Like, shit, Baker, we need you. Finds Emeka Buka on some dots. Interceptions so far, so he's been taking more care of the football, even though we know he's a gunslinger. So the interceptions will come, but taking care of the football, still being a gunslinger and doing it, with fourth quarter, a rookie wide receiver, Emeka Buka, and then obviously Chris Godwin coming back soon. He's, found a way to get done. 3-0 start. They wouldn't be able to do it without Baker. So I'll put him, at an MVP level. Bryce Young, I think overall has been pretty below average. Did have that hope. He came back through 3 touchdown passes, but the Jacksonville game turned the ball over 3 times. I'm just gonna get rid of this category bunts because I hate Burrow. It's really Jake Browning. I'll just do a below average category for now and just kind of delete this row. Just below average, not all that great so far. Even though I do feel weird having some of these guys in the same tier. And then I think so far, like I said, it's only 3 weeks, but who did I just talk about? Mayfield, yeah. He's been amazing so far. Stud. And it was Bryce Young. Bryce Young, like I said, the Jacksonville game, a lot of turnovers, did not play good. Arizona game, first half was awful. Came back in the second half, played pretty amazing. And then I know they beat the Falcons 30-0, but he didn't really do much. Took care of the football, but still, like less than 150 yards passing. Not really all that great to have a rushing touchdown, but he hasn't been awful, but definitely a little bit below average, just considering the expectations. I was hoping he'd take another leap to his game, but hopefully they continue to get better and he continue to develop. I'm actually gonna move Justin Fields down category. I can't put him above CJ Stroud. I'm gonna rank it by I think I still should put CJ Stroud in low average. I think just gotta give him that respect, even though it is mostly based on the first 3 weeks. But yeah, I think I'll move it around like that. And then last up, Spencer Rattler. I know the Saints are 0-3, but Spencer Rattler, came back down to earth last week, but he played a pretty good game against the Cardinals. Played really good against the Niners. I'm gonna give him his respect. He's been average so far. Obviously, the Seahawks game wasn't great, but it is basically most on the first 3 weeks. I've always been high on Spencer Rattler. I think he's a good QB. They got some playmakers with Kamara to make this offense work. Unfortunately, the team's just really bad. Defenses, pretty bad, atrocious that this season, but he could easily come back down to earth below average. But he's been playing some solid football so far. And Kellen Moore, I think coaching him up, I think he can be a QB in this league. And will he be the Saints' long-term quarterback? I don't know, but gotta hope Spencer Rattler fan that he stays. But with that being said, this is my final tier list. MVP level, top 10 quarterback, average, above average, solid, average, mid, whatever, and then just below average, not playing all that great. Those are the tier list, yeah, because there's really only one or two QBs that can put buns. So I'll leave it like that. But with that being said, I'm always curious to get your guys' thoughts. Let me know in the comments what you guys agree, disagree with. Am I too high, too low on somebody, or what you agree with? Because it's always good to have people agree with me as well. But it's always a fun debate what you guys disagree with. But as always, if you love NFL content, make sure to like and subscribe because we're going to be here covering the NFL season. Week 4 starts tomorrow. Give a quick preview on that. And see who I have winning in that NFC West showdown, and just final reviews for the weekend. But as always, like I said, make sure to like and subscribe because I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers. Always appreciate the support. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.